What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Stephen Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever it is you get around to watching this, guys. Once again, Stephen Hyder, Gate City Sports Channel. All right, y'all, so today's topic. Look, we got one more of the big three left to analyze and break down film on, okay? So today, we're talking about Henry Ruggs III. The guy that most of us had on our draft boards from a very early process to say, hey, this is the type of player the Eagles need. Listen, did some digging into the film. I looked back at his production. I've taken a look at the way he runs his routes. I paid attention to where I think his strengths and his weaknesses are. And today, I'm going to talk and I'm going to tell you guys what I feel. I'm going to analyze positional alignment, all three levels of the offense, and whether or not I think this kid can play at all three levels. I'm going to talk about his explosiveness. I'm going to talk about his release off the line of scrimmage today, guys. And I'm going to talk about the type of production that you got out of this young man against the type of competition he faced off against. So, without further ado, guys, today's all about Henry Ruggs III. And, hey, let's go ahead and let's roll into those highlights and let's start breaking down film, guys. All right, y'all. Let's get to it. All right, guys, so positional alignment in Henry Ruggs III. This is what I'll say, guys. Like a lot of these receivers, he worked at all three wide receiver alignments. All right, so he worked as a flanker towards the field side. He worked in the slot, and he also worked as the X receiver a little bit towards the boundary side. With that said, it's pretty obvious when you look on field where he's, versatile, where he's explosive, and where he does the best at. Now, when I saw this kid playing the flanker, I thought this kid was electrifying. When I saw him play more towards the boundary side, where there's a bigger possibility of man and press type coverages, top of your screen, boundary side is the X receiver. That's J.C. Horn and Henry Ruggs matched up. I don't think he played the same. I'd even say that he struggled a little bit with man and press type coverages, even on the flanker side of the field. So, when you get him in those man situations and those press situations, I do think that there is some work that has to be done there with his footwork and his hands. But at the same time, teams did get a little worried, and you saw a lot of man with bail concepts. Because I'll tell you, if you miss this kid with your hands, he's going to make you pay. This is Ruggs one-on-one with his rival Auburn. They decided not to press him, but go man. This kid's speed, it's phenomenal to see on film. This is the result of him beating that man coverage on that comeback. He takes it to the house. He is one of the few prospects that I have sat down and watched, and I saw consistently take nothing more than 7 to 10 yard slant and take them straight to the house, guys. I mean, it was amazing the amount of times it was on film where this kid just took a slant and took it to the house. And that was pretty cool to see. I mean, this kid is one of those guys that he's a threat for a wide receiver screen, right? Coming out of bunch set formations and really picking up chunk yardage on you.
Catching his first and goal at the 9. Didn't look like South Carolina was ready for the snap.
Hitting you with these little like drag routes and in or out routes to where if you miss a tackle, he can take it deep on you. This kid's athleticism is next level, guys. When you talk about speed, I'm not too sure this kid is the most, crafty route runner I've watched, but he's so fluid in his motion. It doesn't even look like he's trying to run hard, and he's so fast that any kind of a move that he'll put on you, like a second move, so if he gives you kind of a double move, it's over. I mean, he leaves guys in the dust if they bite on the second move, and if you're facing a guy like Henry Ruggs, it's really difficult not to bite on that second move, because the bottom line is you don't want this kid getting any leverage on you, because if he gets even, he is absolutely leaving you.
Ruggs and the world-class speed was the difference maker. He said, throw me in that briar patch. I've been around.
He is very explosive in those types of formations, in those type of sets, and he was very effective working out of the slot. When you see him in the slot, I didn't see too many like huge chunk yard plays per se from him working in the slot, but I thought he did a really good job at conversions. So third downs, kind of picking up those chunk yardages you need to convert, move the chains.
Over the middle, caught
I thought he did a really good job working on the slot doing that. I would love to see his game develop a little more on the slot, see him used a little more on like post and fades, seam routes, things like that from the slot, get a little bit more towards the third level of competition here within that route running. So really see this kid get vertical from the slot. I think he's got the capabilities. I just don't think he was utilized that much. As a flanker, man, I'll tell you what, guys, this kid he's tough to play, man. He gets vertical on you quickly. A lot of teams will try to play with that cushion, that 10, 12-yard cushion, but Henry Ruggs has got adequate, he's got adequate foot speed, so he really eats up those cushions quickly, and once he catches you and he's right up on you, it's hard not to get flat-footed on this kid, and he just absolutely blows by you. He is, in terms of those slants, those post routes, double moves, guys, he's one of the best I've watched ever doing this. Simply put, I'll give you an NFL comparison of who he reminds me to on these type of routes. He resembles Stefon Diggs a lot to me. He just is a natural mover like Stefon Diggs is. He's got that big 42-inch vertical, so he can elevate for the football. But I will say this. Verticals don't always show up on film, and that is a concern I do have with this young man, as I didn't see that vertical show up on film. Bottom of your screen, line up as an X receiver. If this ball is thrown on time, it's a touchdown. I think he has a lot of work when it comes to body positioning and then basically how to box out correctly to go get those balls in contested catch areas. Absolute horrible timing by the quarterback, but you got to get your body in position and go up and elevate for that. I don't think he was always special or elite in that regard. But let's take a few minutes and let's run down all three levels, and I'll show you what I saw on film with him playing at all three levels of the route tree. In the short to quick release route area, I do think that Henry Ruggs III, he's a special type of talent. He is elite in this regard, guys, because of just how quick those initial first few steps are and just how good he is at running things like in routes, out routes. You got Judy running a delayed route, then you got Ruggs coming behind him running a little out route side routes. Little dump offs like on a wide receiver screens, right? Quick, routes into the flat. Hitting defenses with things like, slant routes that are being taken back to the house.
First possession for the Crimson Tide after a loss of 3. Quick slant, there he goes!
And I'd even go as far as saying, look, man, this kid shows some potential as a guy who can take something like a jet motion.
Already, leading by 3 touchdowns, Ruggs.
And really do damage against defenses and keep them guessing with misdirection and things like that. Especially if you have other players who can add speed to your football team. This kid could be utilized in a lot of different ways in those short to basically like quick release route areas. I do think this kid is special in that regard. This is Henry Ruggs working across traffic in the end zone, making that touchdown reception, guys. All right, guys. So intermediate area, the intermediate level of the route tree. To me, a lot of people, when they say this, they're really referring to working across the middle of the field, and that is certainly part of the intermediate route stem. But at the same time, it is also about being able to do those things like comebacks, being able to do, different types of in routes and out routes depending on the length. So it's basically anything to me that's kind of above that 10 or maybe 15-yard range, but it's not vertical yet. That's the intermediate level to me. And when I see Henry Ruggs do this, I thought he was really good on those deep comebacks, especially when you get on where it's kind of like coming back on like the back shoulder. Top side, working as an X receiver, look at that curl or that back shoulder. I thought he was really good on those like weird kind of comeback / almost back shoulder type throws because of just how fast he is in and out of his breaks. It's really hard to tell like how good is this kid at using false steps, how good is this kid at using his footwork on this and sinking those hips just because he's so fluid. It's hard to tell, is it his hips, sinking his hips? Is it his footwork, or is it just the fluid nature of just how athletic this kid is that gives him that separation? He's a difficult player to judge in that regard, but the end result doesn't matter if you're getting the separation. The end result is he is getting the separation, and he is really good on that intermediate level. If you get him on the more across the field, the middle of the field, I think he's a bigger player than some people realize, but I think he's special if you can lead him to space across the middle of the field. Auburn's playing off coverage. Man, this kid is so good at manipulating space. I think that's when he can cause a lot of trouble for opposing defenses. Despite the horrible play call, having 2 guys in one place, wow. Man, that would be a nightmare. Guys, on vertical routes, we've really covered this young man and what he is. He's a speedster. He's just got straight elite speed. You try to play him on press, and if you miss getting those hands on him, he'll beat you. If you play off on a cushion, he'll close the distance on that cushion, get you on your heels, and he'll beat you. And to make matters worse, he's pretty good at tracking the football. This isn't a fast kid that just doesn't have really good body positioning, doesn't understand how to track the ball over his shoulder. He's very good at that. So, this is a kid, like I said before, guys. When I watch the film of this young man, I know who he reminds me of. I see it clear as day on film. This kid, the way that he does post and like seam routes and things like that.
They want to dominate. Nick Saban even said it this week. Tagovailoa fires one deep.
Especially those double moves, like the post seam, moves, and the way he works, like, a fly or fade route. He reminds me of Stephon Diggs, guys. He's got that kind of weird, very easy type, like looks like he's barely running, but he's just blown by people type of speed. He reminds me a lot of that kid. I mean, if he learns how to high point the ball, because that's the one thing I will say he's not quite nowhere near the level of Stephon Diggs yet, is he cannot use his height and his weight yet to go up there and high point the ball in that vertical. If you can get a wide receiver coach who can teach him those little subtle techniques, guys, I'm telling you, you can use this kid like a Stephon Diggs. Hopefully he stays on the field a little more often than Stephon Diggs does. But, yeah, man, he's got that type of ability. There's no doubt about it. Once again, they're playing him in a man situation, but they don't press him. They don't get their hands on him. All right, guys. So at this point, you might be asking yourselves, Gate, why is this kid slipping in mock drafts then? Like, why is all of a sudden this kid went from being like someone who was talked about being maybe possibly the first wide receiver off the board to the latest momentum is guys might jump him as the third guy. Denzel Mims has been rumored to jump him. Some people feel Justin Jefferson's going to jump him. Why is all of a sudden Henry Ruggs possibly sliding into the Eagles' range where we may only need to move up to 18 or just stay put at 21 and be able to draft this kid? Why is that happening? It's a tough and complex situation, guys. Some of it has to do with his production of only really catching 40, passes for 746 yards. And that is concerning, guys, because I'm going to tell you the truth. 4 out of 12 games, so that's 33% of all the games he played in, all right? He managed to only catch 2 passes or fewer in. Not a great, number to have, especially when one of those games was against Ole Miss, which is like the 113th ranked pass defense in the country. Typically speaking, if you look at the SEC, there's very good competition there, especially when it comes to pass defenses. But it's in really 4 different tiers with Ole Miss in its own separate trash tier, okay? Your first tier, which I would call the top 25, you got Kentucky, Missouri, Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee. All 5 of those teams are ranked in the top 25 of pass defenses. Then you have tier 2 of the SEC, which is like the University of Florida and Texas A&M. Those are your top 50 pass defenses. Then you have a tier 3, which goes all the way up to the top 75 pass defenses. That includes teams like LSU, Auburn, I think Arkansas is in that group. Yeah, Arkansas. And then you have your 4th tier, right? It goes all the way up to the top 100. That's teams like South Carolina, Vanderbilt, Missouri, right? And then you have that one, like I said, trash tier, which is above 100. And the only one in that one is Ole Miss. So it's difficult because, like I said, 4 games, he only caught 2 passes or fewer. But then again, at the same time, when you look at his deep production, the thing the Eagles need, right? A guy who can stretch the field and get vertical. In 9 out of 12 games, so 75% of games, this young man caught passes of 21 yards or greater. That's a stat line the Eagles would love to have a guy that could do this. That's why other teams are really paying attention, in addition to just what this kid did in the combine. So if you take all that and you add that into the fact that he did have 2 100-yard games against an out-of-conference opponent in Southern Miss, but one of them being, South Carolina, which is a top 100 rated defense, but it's still that, that's still that 4th tier of pass defenses here. And he did have 199-yard game. So basically, we're splitting hairs over 1 yard here, guys. He had 199-yard game against Auburn, which is a top 75, or that tier, that 3rd tier. I think they're actually ranked 60th in the nation, guys, in their pass defense. So they're respectable. So he did have some production against some quality opponents, right? He went off and had a really good game against Tennessee. That's a top 25 defense, right? Southern Miss is ranked 90th. South Carolina's ranked 79th in the nation, and then Auburn's ranked 60th. Those are the 4 films that I watched of this guy. Those are the 4 games I watched start to finish, every snap of this young man, and then kind of analyzed him on. There is some back and forth, guys. That's why he's falling. But I will tell you this. In terms of the flankers, he's my number 1. I think it goes Henry Ruggs. After Henry Ruggs, your next flanker, the guy that is the most versatile, the most explosive, I don't even think it's close, guys. I think your second guy on the board has to be Jalen Reagor. After Jalen Reagor, I think there's one more huge quality guy, and that's Brandon Ayuk. When you get past Brandon Ayuk, then you got to get into guys that you're projecting to be a flanker, right? So this is a guy that you would move from the slot eventually to take the role of a flanker, and that's KJ Hamler. So, he is the best quality of them. It's just a matter of, will the Eagles do that? All right, y'all, we know what I think about him, but you already know I'm going to ask you, what do you think about my man here? So y'all tell me, what do you think about Henry Ruggs III? I do think this guy would be a really tremendous fit here in Philadelphia. I don't know where to place him, guys. I mean, he's all over the place. Some people got him going the first receiver off the board. Other people got him being the 3rd, the 4th, or even the 5th receiver off the board. Let me know what you think, guys. All right, y'all, you know what time it is. EAGLES. All right, y'all, listen, there's more coming. I'm still rolling through these guys, all right? So stay with me, guys. There's more coming up.